Whenever people from Meyruelle praised the beauty of the century, everyone would burst into laughter at once, scoffing. Not only is she gorgeous, but she has the patience of a saint. She's even raised 2 children for her husband's mistress. So when I finally asked for a divorce, not a single person took me seriously. David Thompson didn't even blink, casually tossing a check in front of me. Stop making a scene and go buy yourself a couple of bags. My oldest son didn't even look up from his video game. Stop bothering Dad. If you're going to get the hell out, just do it. Stop faking it. My youngest son called his biological mother directly. That old witch looks like she's finally leaving. Mom, get ready. Even the house staff shook their heads, warning me to stop playing hard to get. However, facing everyone's mockery, I didn't feel any sadness or anger. I simply dialed the phone number I knew by heart. Meyruelle, our 10-year agreement is up. The debt I owed you for saving my sister's life is officially paid off. Meyruelle Brown remained silent for a few seconds before responding. 3 days from now, you'll be free to leave. At the very end, she still choked up as she said, Aurora, it's been hard on you these past years. I know you did your best. After all, we had been mother and daughter-in-law for 10 years. I was momentarily dazed. The words, did your best, were something many people had said to me over the years. With pity, with irony, and even with the intention of watching a good show. However, I didn't regret it. It was precisely because I had done my best that only a sense of relief remained when leaving. Hanging up the phone, my oldest son, Noah Thompson, bumped into me as I walked out. Seeing it was me, a trace of panic appeared on his face, followed by an angry outburst. Are you blind? You're not even hosting my birthday party. What are you doing slacking off here? My brows furrowed. Neither he nor Carter Thompson had ever wanted my presence at their birthdays. So why were they acting so abnormally today? Without thinking much, I turned to walk out. The next second, on the massive screen right in the center of the living room, explicit photos of me were displayed, seductive and obscene. The parents across the room immediately covered their children's eyes. They looked toward me with disgusted expressions. Even though they said nothing, I could guess. These were explicit photos photoshopped by rivals back when I was an actress. Once they were released, the entire internet was filled with comments insulting me. What a WH*re. Who knows how many big shots she's slept with? One look and you'd know she isn't decent, putting on an act. I bet her face is probably entirely from plastic surgery. Noah and Carter were laughing like crazy, pointing at my pale complexion and mockingly saying, look at how scared she is. I bet this time it won't take even 3 minutes before her face is ruined from crying. The moment the words fell, David Thompson, having learned the news, suddenly rushed out of the study and turned off the screen. He furiously grabbed the 2 sons and began lecturing them. My ears buzzed. Leaning against the wall in exhaustion, I lifted my hand and lit a cigarette. Under the effect of nicotine, I slowly calmed down. The next second, a hand suddenly snatched it away. If you keep smoking, how are you going to get pregnant? David irritably stubbed out the cigarette, his eyes staring at me with condemnation. Pregnant? I chuckled. Perhaps that was something I used to want. But did he not remember how I had lost my first child? While taking advantage of my time going to the restroom, Noah led 17-month-old Wes to the courtyard to play. It was only after I finished washing up that I discovered he was nowhere to be found. After searching the entire villa from top to bottom, what awaited me was his floating corpse in the backyard swimming pool. At that instant, my tragic shriek pierced the sky. I scrambled to fish him out. Wes's face was completely pale, his hands still clenching the small cake I had made. I did CPR thousands of times like a crazy person until David couldn't bear to watch any longer. He snatched him away from my embrace. I rushed up to grab him back, but he lifted his hand and slapped me. He said in grief, snap out of it. He's gone. I knelt on the ground and begged him, my pride lowered into the dirt. Please give him back to me. I will take him away and never be an eyesore to you guys again. Yet he grabbed my face and forced me to watch my son be cremated. My gaze was blank, just like a puppet's. Gray smoke continuously drifted out of the chimney. At that moment, half of my soul departed along with him. He died too tragically, and now I was afraid. Seeing my weary expression, David reached out his arms to pull me into his embrace. He comforted me as if coaxing a child. It's all in the past. We always have to look forward. Haven't you missed your period for 2 months? Go to the hospital to check. Before he could finish speaking, the door was suddenly flung open. Daisy Walker's eyes were red, looking as if she were about to snap as she said, how could you hit a child? David instantly let go of me, his panicked expression making it look as though I were the seducing mistress. Noah and Carter rushed over, like 2 weak nestlings. Boo-hoo, Mom, if you didn't come back, we were going to be beaten to death. Daisy held them, lodging a heartbroken accusation. David, you promised you would never let the children suffer a single grievance. How could you break your word? Even past 30, Daisy still gave off an innocent and charming impression. The love between the two of them back then had been intense and spectacular. One was a famous, wealthy heir in Meyruelle, and the other was a sports model. Everyone had shipped them, but Daisy broke up with him to pursue her career. David then married me. When kneeling to propose, his eyes sparkled. Aurora, you are the one who let me know what the taste of home is. And I believed him. However, later, we attended a banquet when a killer raised a gun and fired in our direction. His instinctive reaction was to pounce on Daisy, who was not far away. While I lay in a pool of blood, what stood out was his single-minded courage to protect the person in his arms. That day, I bled a lot. But what flowed even more were my tears. David remained silent for a while. When he turned his head toward me, I knew my fate. Aurora, say you're sorry. Perhaps I would have argued my case in the past. Now, though, I only wanted to smooth things over and leave. Without hesitation, I calmly said to Daisy, I'm sorry. It is all my fault, so let me return this home to you. As the words fell, a deathly silence filled the room. David, who rarely showed emotion, paled for the first time. Only before he could speak, Daisy's tears flowed down. Aurora, are you mocking me? I've already given up the position to you. What are you still putting on an act for? You're breaking my heart. Seeing her cry, the younger son, Carter, gave me a vicious push. Wearing 6-centimeter high heels, my foot twisted, and I fell to the ground. An excruciating pain immediately spread from my ankle. Carter froze for an instant, then let out a snort. So fake. Noah also looked at me for only 2 seconds before comforting Daisy. Mom, don't cry. We'll avenge you. My heart ached as if pricked by needles. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but remember 7 years ago. Daisy had given the 2 children a hurried glance, then driven away with her lover. The boys cried tragically, shouting after her car. Mom, don't go. Please don't go. My heart broke as I watched, and I chased after her for them. I lost my slippers along the way, leaving both my feet bloody from the friction. In the end, completely exhausted, I collapsed to the ground. The 2 little ones threw themselves onto me, crying so hard that they couldn't catch their breath. We won't chase her anymore. I don't want her ever again. From now on, you're our mom. I shed tears back then, thinking my sincerity was finally met. However, 3 years later, Daisy returned after her race results were a complete mess. With just one excuse, the 2 children easily accepted her back, viewing me as a mortal enemy. 10 years of hard work could not compare to a mention of a hidden plight from her mouth. My body suddenly left the ground. David brought an ice pack to apply to my ankle. Aurora, why must you be so sharp-tongued? Wouldn't it pass if you just endured it a little? My fingertips trembled slightly. I thought he was caring for me, but the next second, reality shattered my delusion. How can you go back to the banquet like this? When others see you limping, they'll think I mistreated you. I lowered my eyes and said calmly, then I won't go. Going would only mean being a laughingstock to everyone. Every person who met me would say, Mrs. Thompson is so lucky to have 2 such handsome sons. As soon as they turned around, they would mockingly say, what's she so proud about? She's just a stepmother. Eventually, she will be driven out. Daisy, who was secretly rejoicing, had tears in her eyes instead. Is it because of me? Aurora, I have never thought of replacing you. You don't have to hint at me in such a roundabout way. Saying that, she let go of the 2 children, turned around, and walked outward. Noah and Carter panicked instantly, the childhood fear of being abandoned sweeping over them once more. They blocked Daisy, then stared at me with hatred, shouting, you witch. What right do you have to drive her away? She is our mom. David roared furiously at them. Shut up. Who taught you to talk like that? Then he looked toward me again. Since you are injured, stay at your bedroom and rest. However, the emotion in his eyes wasn't pity or concern for me, but the joy of being able to spend time with Daisy. I didn't react and just let him leave. Before he left, David kissed my cheek like usual. He whispered in my ear, honey, I'll buy you the cannolis you love later. My eyes suddenly welled up with tears, remembering back to when the children were little. Every time David secretly brought me cannolis, they would gather around, scrambling to grab them. Dad is biased, only buying them for Mom. I want some too, I want some too. David would protect me and laugh, saying, your mom is biased toward you guys, and I am biased toward your mom. Fair, no? As for me, I'd eat the cannolis with a beaming smile while watching them squabble. It turns out that we also had moments of happiness. However, those instants were like passing clouds, dispersing as soon as the wind blew. Noah and Carter glanced at me, looking as though they felt guilty for the words they had said. When they began walking toward me, Daisy grabbed them from behind with a sudden jerk. Her eyes were full of jealousy and hatred as she looked toward me. After they left, I began packing my luggage. My gaze landed on the scarf on the bedside table, and my movements suddenly paused. I picked it up, lightly stroked it, then handed it to Mrs. Lopez beside me. "Mrs. Lopez, if you don't mind, please give this to your daughter. Young people look good wearing pink." The corners of Mrs. Lopez's eyes grew red all of a sudden, her voice low. "Madam, this is something Noah and Carter knitted for a month to give to you. You have always cherished it deeply. I cannot take it." I shook my head and said nothing more. While I was minding my own business packing the clothes, photos of David's family of 4 made the headlines. Breaking. Family of 4 reunites, changes ahead for David Thompson's marriage. Beauty of the century, Aurora Hill, suffers tragic abandonment. Marriage status on the brink of collapse. The haters were like blood-sucking leeches, all rushing below to leave comments. Aurora's a notorious SL*T. Based on the things she's done, it's not surprising she was dumped. Exactly. Maybe she's already found someone new. Stop blindly worrying for her. Married for 10 years without bearing children, her body was probably ruined from playing around long ago. No wonder she got dumped. No wonder she has no father or mother. She deserves it, even God can't stand this kind of person. Reading these vicious comments, I couldn't help myself from shivering. My parents passing away in an accidental car crash when I was little had always been a source of pain in my heart. My sister and I grew up relying on one another until she suddenly contracted a severe illness. It was precisely because Meyruelle lent a helping hand to save her that I agreed to marry David. Yet my tragic past experiences were turned into a sharp blade to harm me. My phone buzzed. Meyruelle had suddenly sent a text message. "Aurora, the divorce papers have been processed. After tomorrow, David will never be able to find you again." I instantly felt more at ease. However, the next second, the room door was kicked open. David and his sons stood at the doorway, boundless hatred churning in their eyes. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could speak, a slap sent me crashing to the ground, a tearing pain coming from my scalp. David grabbed my hair, looking at me with absolute disappointment. "Aurora, you're just too cruel. How could I have fallen in love with a poisonous woman like you?" My head ached as if it were splitting open, and I cried out, "What on earth are you talking about?" Noah's fists creaked from being clenched so tightly, tears glistening. "From this day onward, you're no longer my mom." As for Carter, he cried. "My mom is someone who cares so much about her appearance, yet you left such a large scar on her." Seeing the terrified and bewildered look in my eyes, David delivered another slap. "Even now, you're still putting on an act. She wore your evening gown. Why were there razor blades inside it?" With that, he dragged me out with a single yank, throwing me down at Daisy's feet. Daisy's eyes were slightly red, and there was gauze wrapped around her shoulder. She looked at me with extreme grievance. "Aurora, why are you treating me like this? I've never thought of taking this home from you. You have truly misunderstood me." But the moment the words left her mouth, she leaned in close, lowering her voice right at my ear. "You crazy B*TCH. Enjoy it while it lasts, because I'm about to show you exactly who the 3 of them actually love." With that, she grabbed my hand and quickly pressed it hard against her wound. "Ah!" She let out a piercing scream and fell to the floor. In the next second, all 3 men rushed toward her. David immediately held her in his arms. Noah stepped in front of them like a soldier. Even though I had mentally prepared myself millions of times, seeing this scene still made my heart ache. The next second, a picture frame suddenly smashed into my head. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, blood was slowly trickling down my face. Carter was young, after all, and he looked a bit scared after hitting me. Still, he yelled, "Don't you dare hurt my mom again." I remained completely indifferent, staring blankly at the photo on the floor. It was a picture I had taken with them 5 years into our marriage. In it, I was happily holding our 2 children, and David was holding me from behind. Back then, I thought it was the start of our happiness. However, today, 5 years later, reality stripped that away and showed me the truth. The expectations I never should have had finally vanished into thin air. I stood up. Without a single word of explanation, I turned around to grab my suitcase. Daisy shrieked at the top of her lungs, "She's coming toward me. Help. Help me." Rage flared in David's eyes, and he blocked my path. A slap came down, and I completely crashed to the ground. This time, half of my body went numb. A needle-like pain began to throb in my lower abdomen in waves. That was when I instantly remembered that my period was 2 months late. Afraid that I would hurt Daisy again, David dragged me toward the doghouse in the cellar. Clutching my stomach, I grabbed his sleeve, my voice filled with panic. I think I'm pregnant. Don't you remember my period is late? Take me to the hospital, quick. David froze in his tracks. When he turned to look at me, I could see the shock in his eyes. However, because of Daisy, a conflicted look flashed across his face, as if he were trying to figure out if my words were true or false. Tears poured down my face, and I could barely stand on my feet. It hurt so bad. I'm dizzy and nauseous. Seeing how pale my face was, pity flashed in Noah's eyes. He spoke up softly, let's get a doctor to look at her. She isn't someone who fakes being sick. Carter remained silent, but his expression showed that he agreed with his brother. In the next second, the sound of shattering porcelain came from the living room. Daisy's face twisted into an ugly scowl. She could not accept her children and her man showing even a single ounce of feeling toward me, not even pity. So, she began to scream at the top of her lungs, if you dare call a doctor for her, I'll smash my head and die right here. In an instant, David stopped hesitating and quickly dragged me into the cellar. My heart sank. But the moment the door closed, a shadow suddenly appeared behind him and shoved a white cloth over his face. David's eyes widened in shock, and he fought back fiercely. However, in less than half a minute, his body went completely limp, and he slumped down. In the darkness, the crisp click-clack of high heels echoed. A familiar voice comforted me. Aurora, from now on, you are free. Go find your sister. The shadows in the cellar seemed to recoil as a sharp beam of light cut through the gloom. Standing at the foot of the concrete stairs was Meyruelle Brown, clad in a immaculate charcoal-tailored suit. Behind her stood 2 tall, broad-shouldered men in dark coats. Meyruelle dropped the linen handkerchief she had used to render David unconscious. She didn't bestow even a glance on her son's slumped form. Instead, her eyes settled on me, instantly softening into a mixture of profound heartache and cold, resolute anger. Aurora, Meyruelle whispered, kneeling beside me despite the dust on the floor. Her delicate, aged hands cupped my blood-stained, bone-chilled face. I am so sorry. I should have come an hour earlier. Mother. My voice was barely a raspy whisper. Pain ripped through my lower abdomen, sharp as broken glass. The baby. Or whatever it is, it hurts. Shoo, don't speak. I'm taking you home. Meyruelle motioned to the men. One of them swiftly lifted me into his arms with maximum care, wrapping me in a thick cashmere cloak. The other pulled out a silence tool, unlocked the back cellar gate that led directly to a secluded private alley, and cleared the path. As I was carried out into the cool midnight air, I looked back one last time. David lay sprawled like a discarded rag on the dirty floor. Above us, through the grand glass windows of the main villa, light poured out onto the lawn. I could hear Daisy's faint, melodramatic sobbing, accompanied by the panicked, eager voices of Noah and Carter trying to comfort her. They didn't even notice that the man who had dragged me down had never returned. They didn't care. A dark limousine glided to a halt at the alley entrance. I was carefully placed in the back seat. Meyruelle climbed in beside me, instructing the driver in a ice-cold tone, St. Jude's Private Hospital. Have the surgical team ready. Erase all surveillance footage within a 3-mile radius. As the vehicle accelerated into the night, the agony in my stomach peaked. Warmth pooled beneath me, soaking through my dress. Meyruelle held my hand tightly, tears finally spilling over her wrinkled cheeks. Hold on, Aurora. Your sister Iris is waiting for you in Switzerland. Her treatment is complete. She is healthy, happy, and praying for your return every single day. You owe these monsters nothing anymore. 10 years. I whimpered, my vision blurring into spots of white and dark red. I kept my word, Mother Meyruelle. I raised his kids. I bore his coldness. I survived Wes's death. You did more than keep your word, Meyruelle said, her voice trembling with intense emotion. You gave them your soul, and they trampled it. Now, it is time for them to pay. When we arrived at the hospital, I was rushed straight into the operating room. The diagnosis came swift and brutal, an ruptured abdominal hemorrhage caused by severe physical trauma, compounded by a long-neglected ectopic pregnancy. As the anesthesia took hold and the bright surgical lights faded into darkness, I felt a strange, sublime sensation of lightness. The final thread binding me to David Thompson, to the Thompson family, and to the bitter ghost of my lost 10 years had snapped. At 9 o'clock the following morning, David Thompson awoke with an excruciating migraine. His eyes snapped open. He found himself lying on the cold, damp floor of the cellar doghouse. The dim light filtering through the small high window revealed an empty room. "Aurora," he muttered, his voice raspy. Memory returned in a violent surge, the argument, Daisy's injury, the razor blades, dragging Aurora down here, her pale face begging him about a pregnancy, and then a sudden, sickening darkness. He scrambled to his feet, cursing. His neck throbbed. "Aurora. Stop playing dead. And get out here." No answer. David stepped forward, but his leather shoes trod on something sticky. He looked down. A dark, crimson pool of dried blood stained the concrete where Aurora had collapsed. Next to it lay a single, cheap pearl earring he had bought her on their second anniversary, the only gift she had preserved meticulously over the years. David's heart did a strange, uncomfortable flip. A cold knot formed in his stomach. "She's just faking it," he muttered to himself, rubbing his sore neck. "She used fake blood to scare me. She's getting bolder." He stormed up the cellar stairs and slammed the heavy oak door open. In the dining room, a lavish breakfast was set. Daisy was sitting at the head of the table in a silk robe, sipping tea while Noah and Carter lovingly buttered toast for her. "Dad." Carter looked up, a hint of guilt crossing his young face. "Where were you? We thought you were in the study." Daisy immediately lowered her cup, putting on a fragile, pained expression. "David, my shoulder hurts so much. Aurora was so vicious yesterday. Has she reflected on her actions in the cellar?" David stood at the edge of the dining room, his gaze lingering on the empty seat where Aurora used to sit every morning, the seat from which she would quietly hand everyone their customized health juices, check the boys' schedules, and ensure David's tie matched his suit. "She's gone," David said, his tone unnaturally flat. "Gone?" Noah sneered, leaning back in his chair. "Good riddance. She probably ran back to her cheap apartment to cry. Give her 2 days, Dad. When her money runs out, she'll crawl back on her knees begging for your allowance like she always does." "Yeah," Carter agreed, though he unconsciously fidgeted with his fork. "She always plays hard to get. Remember 3 years ago when she said she was leaving? She didn't even make it past the front gate before coming back to make us dinner." Daisy smiled inwardly, though she maintained her soft, pitying facade. "David. Don't be angry with Aurora. She's just jealous. Now that I'm back, I'll take proper care of you and the boys. We don't need a bitter housekeeper ruining our home." David forced a smile, nodding. "You're right. Let her throw her stroke. See how long she lasts." He walked up to his master bedroom, intending to change his suit. But when he opened the walk-in closet, he froze. Half of the closet was completely bare. Aurora's clothes, few as they were compared to Daisy's past wardrobe, were gone. Her vanity table was cleared of all cosmetics. The only thing left on the glass surface was a neat, heavy black folder. David walked over, his fingers trembling slightly as he opened it. Inside was a legally binding divorce agreement, signed in sharp, elegant handwriting, Aurora Hill. Attached to it was a letter bearing the official seal of the Brown family trust, his mother Muriel's private foundation. David's breath caught in his throat. He quickly scanned the contents of the letter. "David. 10 years ago, when your company faced bankruptcy and your reputation was in ruins after Daisy abandoned you with 2 infant boys, I made a deal with Aurora Hill. I paid for her younger sister's life-saving organ transplant in exchange for her giving up her rising career as an actress to become your wife, stepmother to your abandoned children, and the silent shield for your fragile pride. The contract was for 10 years. Yesterday, the 10 years ended. Aurora has fulfilled every line of her obligation. You, however, failed every test of humanity. Do not bother searching for her. If you attempt to harass her, the Brown Family Trust will immediately revoke all corporate backing, credit lines, and technology patents granted to Thompson Enterprise. Signed, Meyruelle Brown. The paper slipped from David's numb fingers. A deal, he whispered, his mind spinning into chaos. 10 years, a contract. All those times he thought Aurora was an ambitious, gold-digging woman who clung to him for wealth, all those times he believed she endured his indifference. Because she had nowhere else to go, it was all a commercial debt? No, impossible, David snarled, his pride violently rejected the reality. She loved me. She looked at me with devotion. She cared for Noah and Carter like her own. Just then, his phone rang violently. It was the head physician of St. Jude's private hospital, a personal acquaintance. David. Thank God you picked up, the doctor said, his tone grave. We just finished reviewing the emergency room logs from last night under your mother's clearance, but as a family friend, I felt compelled to ask, what on earth happened to your wife? David's hand tightened around the phone. What are you talking about? Mrs. Thompson was brought in with massive internal bleeding, acute uterine trauma, and severe lacerations from blunt force, the doctor exclaimed, shock in his voice. We had to perform an emergency hysterectomy to save her life. The fetus was barely 6 weeks old. It was destroyed by severe physical impact to her abdomen. Didn't you know she was pregnant? Emergency hysterectomy. Fetus destroyed by physical impact. The words blasted through David's mind like thunder. He remembered yesterday evening. In the hallway outside the doghouse, Aurora had clutched her stomach, crying, gasping, begging him, I think I'm pregnant. Take me to the hospital, quick. And what had he done? He had scoffed at her. He had believed Daisy's theatrical screams. He had dragged her down into the cellar and left her bleeding on the concrete floor. David? Are you there? The doctor asked. David dropped the phone. It shattered on the marble floor. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the bed, staring blankly at the empty closet. A cold, suffocating wave of horror began to wrap around his heart. 3 months later. Geneva, Switzerland. The autumn sun glittered across the pristine blue surface of Lake Geneva. In a sunlit villa courtyard overlooking the water, I sat on a wicker chair, holding a cup of freshly brewed chamomile tea. The pale, sunken, exhausted woman who used to stare back at me in the mirrors of the Thompson estate was gone. My hair had regained its silky luster, falling in soft waves over my shoulders. My skin, once sallow from endless nights of domestic labor and anxiety, was smooth and radiant. Wearing a simple ivory silk blouse and wide-leg trousers, I looked younger, freer, and more strikingly beautiful than I had even in my early 20s. Sister. Look. A cheerful voice broke the silence. Iris, my younger sister, ran out into the courtyard holding a canvas painting. She was 24 now, her face full of life, completely cured of the congenital heart defect that had once threatened to claim her life. It's finished, Iris said proudly, setting the canvas on an easel before me. It was a portrait of me standing under a cherry blossom tree, looking up at a vast, open blue sky. The colors were vibrant, full of warmth and hope. I smiled, a genuine, deep-seated smile that reached my eyes. It's beautiful. Iris. Truly. Not as beautiful as the real you, Iris said softly, kneeling beside my chair and resting her head on my lap. Her eyes glistened with tears. Every time I think about what you suffered for 10 years in that terrible house just so I could live, my heart breaks into pieces. I gently stroked her hair. Don't look back, Iris. The debt is paid. The nightmare is over. We are alive, and we have a whole life ahead of us. That's right. The glass door opened, and Meyruelle Brown walked out into the courtyard, holding a thick stack of documents. She wore an elegant burgundy dress, looking every bit the formidable matriarch of the Brown financial empire. Mother Meyruelle, I said, rising to greet her. Sit, my dear, Meyruelle said warmly, setting the documents on the table. I have 2 pieces of good news for you. She slid the first document forward. First, your international non-disclosure and asset protection agreements are finalized. The Thompson family has no legal right to trace your location, nor do they have access to your personal funds. Second, the International Art Foundation you wanted to establish has been officially approved by the Swiss government. You are now the primary shareholder and creative director of the Hill Contemporary Art Center. I looked at the official seals on the documents, feeling a surge of profound gratitude. Thank you, Meyruelle. For everything. You don't owe me thanks, Aurora, Meyruelle said, her tone turning quiet and solemn. If anyone should apologize, it is me. I forced you into a marriage with my worthless son to save your sister, hoping your purity and kindness would reform him and turn him into a real man. But David was a fool. He inherited his father's arrogance and blindness. He traded diamond for broken glass. I shook my head gently. It was a fair transaction. You saved Iris, I gave 10 years. Now, we are even. And what about David and the boys? Iris asked hesitantly. Are they still looking for you? Meyruelle chuckled, a cold, disdainful sound. David has lost his mind over the past 3 months. He has hired 17 private detective agencies across Europe and Asia. He hasn't slept a full night since he realized Aurora was truly gone. I picked up my teacup, taking a slow sip. My expression remained entirely serene. Let him search. A ghost is hardest to find when you were the one who killed it. Meanwhile, in Meyruelle, the Thompson villa was plunging into total chaos. Without Aurora's meticulous management, the grand house had devolved into an unmanageable mess. The domestic staff, who had worked for years under Aurora's gentle and respectful guidance, could not tolerate Daisy's tyrannical, condescending attitude. Within 2 months, the head butler, the private chef, and 3 housekeepers resigned en masse. The newly hired staff were inexperienced and careless. The meals were either too salty or delivered cold. The laundry was routinely ruined. More importantly, the warm, tranquil atmosphere that had once defined the Thompson home had vanished, replaced by constant screaming, arguments, and financial strain. What do you mean the luxury boutique cancelled my VIP membership? Daisy slammed her diamond-encrusted handbag onto the marble coffee table in the living room, her face contorted with rage. Noah and Carter, sitting on the sofa attempting to complete their university applications, flinched at the sound. Mom, can you keep it down? Noah said irritably, rubbing his temples. He looked exhausted, dark circles framing his eyes. Dad's business is having huge problems right now. The Brown Family Trust withdrew all their funding last month. Dad is running around trying to secure loans. Don't you dare speak to me in that tone, Noah. Daisy shrieked, pointing a finger at him. I am your mother. I gave birth to you. David promised me I would live like a queen when I came back. Now every time I ask for money, he gives me an attitude. Carter looked up from his laptop, his young face full of disillusionment. Mom, all you talk about every single day is money, bags, and jewelry. When Aurora was here, she never spent Dad's money like this. She even ran her own small online illustration studio to pay for our private tutoring. Don't mention that woman in front of me. Daisy roared, her eyes flashing with jealousy. She was just a fake bitch. She did those things to win your father's heart. She didn't do it to win Dad's heart. A cold, heavy voice echoed from the staircase. David walked down slowly. In just 3 short months, he seemed to have aged 10 years. His hair was streaked with gray, his eyes were bloodshot, and his suit hung loosely over his visibly thinner frame. David. Daisy immediately changed her expression, putting on a tearful look as she rushed over to grab his arm. David, look at your sons. They're taking that. Woman sighed again. My shoulder still hurts from the razor blade incident. Shut up, Daisy, David said quietly. Daisy froze. What? David pulled his arm out of her grip with immense disgust. He threw an envelope onto the coffee table. I had the forensics department re-examine the dress you wore 3 months ago. David said, his voice dead and emotionless. The razor blades found in the lining of that dress, the fingerprints on them belonged to your personal assistant. You placed them there yourself to frame Aurora. Noah and Carter gasped, standing up abruptly. Dad, what did you say? Noah asked, his voice shaking violently. She framed Aurora? Not only that, David continued, his bloodshot eyes staring directly into Daisy's panicked face. I also investigated the banquet shooting 7 years ago. The one where I took a bullet to protect you while Aurora lay bleeding on the floor. Daisy's face turned deathly pale. David, listen to me, it's a misunderstanding. It wasn't an assassin targeting the Thompson family, David interrupted, his voice rising into a thunderous roar. It was a debt collector sent by your gambler lover in France. You knew someone was coming to shoot at him, so you deliberately walked next to me at the banquet to use me as a human shield. A human shield. The truth shattered the living room like a bomb. Noah stepped back, stumbling against the sofa, his eyes filled with disbelief and utter horror. Mom, you used Dad? And you let us hate Aurora for 7 years? No. It's not like that. Noah, Carter, my sweet boys, don't listen to him. Daisy panicked, reaching out to grab Carter's hand. Carter violently pushed her away, his eyes bursting with tears. Don't touch me. You abandoned us when we were toddlers. You came back only because you ran out of money. Aurora chased your car until her feet were covered in blood just to bring you back for us. And we called her a witch. We photoshopped her pictures. We pushed her. Carter covered his face, collapsing onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. We killed her baby. Carter shrieked, his voice raw with pure agony. Dad, we killed her baby in the cellar that night. She was telling the truth. She was bleeding, and we let you throw her into the doghouse. The living room fell into a suffocating, unbearable silence. Noah fell to his knees beside his brother, clutching his hair, screaming in pure, unadulterated remorse. David didn't cry. He just stood there, looking at his 2 broken sons and the treacherous woman he had idolized for decades. Get out, David whispered to Daisy. David. Get out of my house. David roared, seizing a heavy glass vase and smashing it against the wall right beside Daisy's head. Screaming in terror, Daisy gathered her designer bags and fled the villa in complete disgrace, never to return. David turned around slowly, walking toward Aurora's empty study room. He locked the door behind him, sank onto the chair where she used to sit, and opened her desk drawer. Inside lay an old, faded notebook. It was Aurora's private journal from 5 years ago, the year their biological son, Wes, had drowned. David opened the pages with trembling fingers. June 14th. Today is Wes's Memorial Day. David forgot again. He took Noah and Carter to Paris to attend Daisy's fashion exhibition. He left me alone in the house. I went to the swimming pool in the backyard. I sat there until dawn. Wes. My sweet boy. Mommy misses you so much. But Mommy promises to protect your 2 older brothers. Even if they hate me, even if they call me a stepmother, I will make sure they grow up safe and loved. I only have 5 years left on my contract with Mother Meyruelle. Once the debt is paid, I will go to heaven to find you. David pressed the notebook against his chest, collapsing onto the desk as violent, gut-wrenching sobs racked his entire body. He had destroyed the only woman who had ever loved him without condition. He had murdered his own child, betrayed his own mother, and broken his family beyond repair. 1 year later. Venice, Italy. The International Contemporary Art Biennale was holding its grand opening gala at the historic Palazzo Ducale. The event was attended by world-renowned artists, global billionaires, European nobility, and elite media outlets. The center of attention that evening was none other than Aurora Hill. As the founder of the Hill Art Center and the head curator of the Biennale's primary exhibition, Aurora was radiant. She wore a breathtaking floor-length dark blue velvet gown that draped flawlessly over her slender figure. A modest yet exquisite sapphire necklace adorned her collarbone. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant updo, exposing her graceful neck and serene, confident face. Beside her stood Meyruelle Brown, looking regal and proud, along with several prominent European art patrons. Miss Hill, a reporter from a leading international magazine, approached, holding a microphone. Your exhibition, Resurrection, has swept the art world by storm. The underlying theme of breaking free from trauma and reclaiming one's life has touched millions. May I ask, what was the inspiration behind this masterpiece? Aurora held her champagne glass, a calm, luminous smile playing on her lips. The inspiration came from a realization, Aurora answered smoothly in fluent, elegant English. For a long time, I believed that enduring pain was a virtue. But eventually, I realized that true strength is not about enduring abuse, it is about having the courage to walk away from toxic shadow and step into the light. Once you let go of the wrong people, your life truly begins. Applause erupted around her. Unbeknownst to the crowd, standing at the far edge of the grand hall, hidden behind a stone pillar, were three shabby, out-of-place figures. It was David, Noah, and Carter. Over the past year, Thompson Enterprise had gone bankrupt following the withdrawal of the Brown family trust and a string of failed investments. David had sold the villa, the luxury cars, and all his stocks to pay off debts. Noah and Carter had dropped out of their prestigious private universities, taking multiple part-time jobs to help support their father and pay for their living expenses. They had spent every single penny of their remaining savings to purchase 3 entry tickets to this gala, just to see Aurora one last time. Looking at the woman standing on the illuminated stage, so ethereal, so powerful, so completely beyond their reach, David felt as though his heart was being torn apart by wild beasts. "Mom," Carter whispered, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. "She's so beautiful, she looks like an angel." "She's not our mom anymore, Carter," Noah said, his voice choked with raspy despair. "We threw her away. We called her a witch. We don't deserve to even call her name." David's hands shook uncontrollably. He clutched a small velvet box in his coat pocket. Inside was the repaired pearl earring he had recovered from the dark cellar floor a year ago. "I have to talk to her," David muttered, his eyes crazed with desperate longing. "Just one word. I just need to tell her I'm sorry." Before Noah could stop him, David broke through the crowd, rushing toward the center of the hall. "Aurora!" David shouted, his voice cracking with immense sorrow. "Aurora!" The security guards immediately moved to intercept him, but Aurora raised a subtle hand, stopping them. The glamorous crowd parted, leaving a wide open space between David Thompson and Aurora Hill. Noah and Carter ran up behind David, kneeling directly on the polished marble floor of the palace, sobbing wildly. "Aurora! Please!" David fell to his knees as well, holding up the velvet box. With trembling hands, his face drenched in tears. "I was wrong. I was blind. I was a monster. I know the truth about Daisy, about the contract, about everything. Please, give me a chance to atone. Come back to me, come back home. Mom!" Carter cried, banging his head against the floor. "We miss you. We miss your cooking. We miss the way you smiled at us. We know we were horrible. Please beat us, curse us, but don't ignore us. Please come back." Noah's voice was broken, raw with unbearable guilt. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. For the photos, for the hurtful words, for everything. I'll work 3 jobs. I'll take care of you for the rest of my life. Just look at us, please look at us." The entire hall fell into a shocked, stunned silence. High society guests looked at the 3 kneeling, disheveled men in total astonishment, whispering to one another. David looked up, his eyes full of desperate, pathetic hope, waiting for a trace of anger, sadness, or tearful resentment in Aurora's eyes. Even anger would mean she still felt something for him. However, as Aurora looked down at the 3 kneeling men, her face remained utterly tranquil. There was no hatred in her dark eyes. There was no pain. There was no resentment. There was only a vast, infinite, chilling emptiness, the absolute detachment one feels when looking at a piece of dust on the road. She looked at David, then at Noah and Carter, as if she were looking at complete strangers she had never met in her life. "Sir," Aurora spoke softly, her voice cool and pleasant, echoing clearly through the grand hall. "You have recognized the wrong person." David felt as if a physical blade had been plunged straight into his chest and twisted violently. "Aurora. It's me. It's David. Your husband. And these are your sons, Noah and Carter." Aurora tilted her head slightly, her smile politely distant. "My husband died 5 years ago alongside my son, Wes," she said calmly, without a single ripple of emotion. "As for sons, I have no children in this world. No. No." David shrieked, collapsing forward, trying to grab the hem of her gown. "Aurora. Security personnel immediately swarmed forward, pinning David, Noah, and Carter to the ground, pulling them away from the stage. "Get them out of here," Muriel Brown instructed the security chief in a cold, unforgiving voice. "If these vagrants harass Miss Hill again, lodge a formal police report immediately." Noah and Carter screamed and wept as they were dragged across the polished marble floor, their desperate cries echoing through the palace. "MOM. MOM. We're sorry. MOM." Aurora did not turn back once. She casually handed her empty glass to a waiter, turned to her international art partners, and continued her conversation with an elegant, radiant smile. The night air of Venice was crisp and clear. Standing on the balcony of the Palazzo Ducale, looking out over the Grand Canal, where gondolas drifted quietly under the moonlight, I drew a deep breath. Iris walked up beside me, wrapping a soft white fur shawl over my shoulders. "Did seeing them hurt?" Iris asked softly, looking into my eyes. I smiled, looking at the full moon hanging above the ocean horizon. "Not at all," I said softly. "When you truly love someone, hatred is born from disappointment. But when you completely let go, even hatred becomes an unnecessary emotion. They will spend the rest of their lives living in the hell of their own regret," Iris said, her voice full of quiet satisfaction. "That is the ultimate punishment for what they did to you. Their life is their own business now," I said, leaning my hand on the stone balustrade. "Mine has just begun." Behind us, Muriel walked out onto the balcony, holding 2 glasses of red wine. She handed one to me, her eyes filled with profound admiration and peace. "To freedom, Aurora," Muriel said, raising her glass. I clinked my glass against hers, the clear, ringing sound chiming in the quiet night. "To freedom." Below the balcony, far away on the public pier outside the security gates, 3 broken figures sat huddled together in the cold wind, weeping hopelessly into the dark, silent waters of the canal. They had spent 10 years tossing away a priceless treasure, believing it would always be there for them to trample. Now, the light had left them forever, leaving them in an eternal, inescapable darkness of their own making. I turned around, turning my back on the cold canal, and walked back into the brightly lit, warm, joyous hall, stepping forward into a future that belonged entirely, beautifully, to me.